Hello guys, my name is Angel. Welcome back to a new episode of Dev++. Today we're going to be talking about system design, authorization, permissions, and access control strategies. So what we're going to be talking about today, what's access control, the components of access control, and we're going to just review a couple of strategies about, how to implement access control in a system. So first of all, what's access control? According to Citrix, access control is a fundamental component of data security that dictates who is allowed to access and use company information and resources. You can search the complete definition here. In my opinion, access control is an element or a group of elements that control who is responsible for controlling the access to a system and to its resources by users, right? This could be very simple as storing who has access to who, right, which is one of the strategies that we're going to see. But it also can get really complex into evaluating multiple conditions in order for a request or a user to access a specific set of resources or a single resource, right? In order to explain the different strategies behind access control, we have to understand a couple of components in this, this explanation. First of all, we identified as who is trying to access the resource as a user, right? User tries to access a resource which is exposed by the system, and then we have an authorization component, which is where it's a place where that evaluation, whether you have access or you don't have access, is performed, right? Usually that authorization could be as simple as, you have this attribute, or you are this user, or you're not this user, or you have this role, or you have this permission. That evaluation is known as a rule, right? Different rules can be compound into governing the access to a specific resource. And finally, we have a rule management, which could be just a simple table or a database or a complete software or a complete specialized software that you can use in order to manage, who has access to which resource, right? So having those different components, let's check out different strategies that we could have in order to create an access control, layer into our system. So the first and the most simple, just one thing to notice there, like the four strategies that we're going to see today are organized in a way that are from the most simple to the most complex, right? So we start with permission based because it's the one that is the simpler one. So as I was saying, it's simple and easy to implement, right? It is ideal for small APIs or very specific web services or microservices. Users are assigned directly with permissions. This could be in a users table. You can imagine that like attributes in a user tables. And rules are basically evaluation whether a user that is trying to make a request has permission or not, or has a specific permission or not. Management, given the simplicity of the strategy, management can be done directly on a database interface, and usually it's done that way, right? Because of the conditions of simplicity. Next, we have the role-based access control. This is the way more popular one. This is probably what you see 90% of the time everywhere. You can have the variation of assigning a single role to a user or maybe multiple roles to a user. You could also have the complexity of, in a multi-tenant environment, multi-organization environment, you can have roles in different organizations, and you can assign a user a role in each one of the specific organizations, or even taking it one step further and assign multiple roles in multiple organizations, right? So that depends on your use case. It gives you the possibility of more control, right? If you choose to divide the roles in a set of permissions. You can be a little bit more atomic and define your access to your resources in permissions, and the roles is just a set or a group of those permissions being put into a name, right? Again, this This could be simple, this could be complicated, and you can enable it to, single tenant environments or multi-tenant environments, right? Here, authorization consists on the validation of whether a user has a specific role or a specific permission, or even a role or a permission within an organization, if that's the case, again, in a multi-tenant environment. This is the most popular solution, as I was saying, and it fits almost every use case with certain or little limitations. Good. So let's go to our next, strategy. So the next strategy that we're gonna talk is attribute-based access control, right? This is a little bit more complex. It doesn't roll out, or it doesn't take away the component of having permissions and roles. It just takes one step further, right? In this type of strategy, the evaluation of the authorization layer, it takes in consideration way more data, right? User agent, like the organization of the user, the position in the organization, what time of the day, different values that the user is trying to use in the access for the resource. Let me tell you like one example, right? If you're trying to make a charge to a credit card, maybe given your position on the organization, you are bound to make charges up to $1,000, for example, right? But it maybe somewhere higher in the hierarchy of the organization can be allowed to do, higher transactions or higher payments, right? So one rule that this system can enforce, or that the system allows you to enforce, is that you don't only take consideration whether the user can use the web service or not, but you also evaluate things like the amount that the user is trying to pay, right? So it's a little bit more complex than role-based authorization, right? It's not so much as, do you have this or you don't have this. It's a more complex scenario. Given that complexity, the abstraction of that evaluation of different rules and different conditions with different attributes is known as a policy, right? You may see this if you use like a cloud service such as like Amazon, or maybe like Google Cloud or Azure, that evaluation gets so complex that now it has its own name, right? It's not just a set of rules, it's a complete policy of accessing or not a resource, right? This gives us like the entrance of our next and more complex strategy, which is called policy-based access control. It's an extension of the attribute-based access control. The main difference, it has two main difference here, right? That at least you should have one to be able to identify the strategy as policy-based access control. First, the policies can be programmable. That means that you can have an actual interface when you can define code in order to attach to a user or to a resource in order to define whether they have access or not. And also, that second part about being able to assign policies to specific users, that's also a component of this policy-based access control. So remember, one of the two, right? Either there are programmable policies that you can change as you want it, right? They can be on the user or they can be on the resource, but the programmable fact or the programmable attribute here is that you can change it. And the other thing that they may not be programmable, but you can play around with policies, right? You can assign policies to users as you want. You can assign policies to roles if you want. You can assign policies to permissions, or you can assign policies to a specific resource on the system. Okay, those are the four basics of the most popular access control. So I'm gonna leave you like with a little bit of a summary and my thoughts, right? Whenever you're trying to implement an access control strategy, you have to really think about, the needs of the system, right? If you're doing something really small, who's gonna do like one or two things, maybe not even permissions are necessary, or maybe just a simple permission-based access control, right? Minimum configuration, minimum work, and it just get the job done, right? If you're not sure, if you're working on a system which is not trivial, which is not has like one or two operations, chances are, or maybe like 90 or 95% of the time, that you're gonna wanna go with role-based access control, right? It's the most popular one. There is a lot of support there. It's a well-known strategy, right? Most of the systems use that. even really large applications such as GitHub or Facebook, and you probably are good with that, right? Access control and attribute-based access control or policy-based access control are usually reserved for really large organizations with a lot of different layers and resources and complexities, and usually with dedicated teams and staff, just put there in order to control who has access to what and enhance that security layer. So finally, if you really are enjoying this video, if you like this video, hit the like button, right? Make any comments regarding this strategy if you agree or not agree with me. Make sure to subscribe the channel and share this, in your network to, whoever do you think that this will be useful for. So thank you.